my friends. So we're in the book of Mark, yeah, chapter 6, and this is Christ talking about being contaminated by his own countrymen, and basically means betrayed, okay? In John the Baptist's death and the miracle of the loaves of fishes. So just a little bit about that, just a little comment. I'm not exactly sure why his own countrymen did this to him. You know, when you grow up with somebody, you think, oh, that's just little Johnny. You know, that's just little, that's little Margie. Who, you know, you know, and they betray you by not seeing beyond their past experience. Okay. Oftentimes we're not given a chance by even our own family to be recognized as something other than just a sister or a brother or a family member, but that, and we're not given credit where credit is due sometimes. And oftentimes you will, if you've lived long enough, you will experience betrayal in your life. You may have betrayed somebody. And things happen between people all the time. Live long enough and you'll experience each and every one of those things that can happen. And I believe that in this case, Jesus was betrayed by his own people that he grew up with. They didn't accept him for who he was. Okay, so, but know that you are to forgive them. Okay, and that. And I'm sure Jesus will mention this as I read on, okay? All right, so he went out from hence and came into his own country, and his disciples followed him. He's speaking of Jesus, okay? And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue. And many hearing him were astonished, saying, from whence has this man these things? I mean, where did he get all this? They're murmuring, What wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? So they've heard all of the miracles that have happened. They're dumbfounded. They can't figure it out. Okay? And they were murmuring to each other, isn't this the carpenter, the son of Mary? I mean, he's just the carpenter's son. I mean, really? He's not even a Pharisee. He's not a scribe. He's not a Sadducee. He's just some carpenter's son, okay? And so, son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph and Judah and Simon. Are not this his sisters here with us, right? Aren't those his sisters? And they were offended by him. Like, who's he to tell us? He's just a son, nobody, right? What? Scoffing, okay? But Jesus said unto them, a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country, and among his own kin, and in his own house. And he could there do no mighty work, because they had no faith, okay? Save that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk and healed them. So you have to do your part, okay? You have to have faith. You have to believe, and then Jesus can do his work. Okay? You have to make a first step. If you have unbelief and do not believe, then it won't happen. Okay? You must believe. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he went around about the villages teaching. And he called unto him 12, and he began to send them forth 2 by 2, and gave them the power over unclean spirits, and commanded them that they should take nothing for their journey, save a staff only, no scrip, no bread, no money, nothing in their purse. But he shod with sandals, and not put on 2 coats, only one. And he said unto them, in what place soever you enter into the house, there abide until you depart from that place. And whosoever shall not receive you or hear you, or when you depart thence, shake off the dust from your feet for a testimony against them. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in that day of judgment than for that city. They went out and preached that the men should repent. They cast out many devils, anointed with oil many that were sick, healed them. And King Herod heard of him, and his name was spread abroad. And he said that John the Baptist was risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. So, see, they didn't even believe he was, they were thinking John was in him, so they had the spirit of John, okay? And then others said, no, it is Isaiah. And the others said, no, it's a prophet, or one of the prophets. And Herod heard thereof, and he said, it's John, who I beheaded. He's risen from the dead. And Herod himself had sent forth and laid hold upon John, and bound him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother's Philip's wife, for he had married her. And for John had said unto Herod, it's not lawful for thee to have thy brother's wife. Therefore Herodias had a quarrel against him, and would have killed him, but she could not. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just man, and wholly observed him. And when he heard him, he did many things, and heard him gladly. And when a convenient day had come, that Herod on his birthday made a supper to his lords and high captains and chief estates of Galilee, when the daughter of this said Herodias came in, danced, and it pleased Herod and them that sat with him, the king said unto the damsel, ask me whatsoever thou wilt, and I will give it to thee. And he swore unto her, whatsoever thou shalt ask of me, I will give it to thee unto half of my kingdom. And she went forth and said unto her mother, what shall I ask? And she said, the head of John the Baptist. And she came in straight away with haste unto the king, and asked, saying, I will that thou give me by and by in the charter the head of John the Baptist. And the king was exceedingly sorry, yet for his oath's sake, and for the sakes which sat with him, he could not reject her. And immediately the king sent an executioner, and commanded his head to be brought, and he went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a charger, and gave it to the damsel. And the damsel gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took up his corpse, and laid it in a tomb. And the apostle gathered themselves together unto Jesus, and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while. For there are many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. And they departed into the desert place by a ship privately. And the people saw them departing, many knew him, and ran afoot thither. All of the cities outwent them, and came together unto him. And he was a rock star, okay? And so Jesus, when he came out, saw much people, and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. It's just been so cool to see Jesus. Man. And when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him, and said, this is a desert place, and now time is far past. Send them away, that they may go into the country round about, and into villages, and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. And he answered and said unto them, give them to eat. And they say unto him, shall we go and buy 200 penny worth of bread and give them to eat? And he said unto them, how many loaves have you? Go and see. And they knew, and they said, 5 and 2 fishes. And he commanded them to make them sit down by companies upon the green grass. And they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. And he had taken the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples to set before them, the 2 fishes divided among them all. And they did eat, and they were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments and of the fishes. And they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men. Straightway he constrained his disciples to get into the ship and go to the other side before Bethsaida, and while he sent away the people. And he had sent them away, he departed into mountains to pray. So not just, 5,000 men, but their wives and children. So, and they still had bread and fish left over. Yeah. And when eve was come, the ship in the midst of the sea, he was alone on the land. And he saw them toiling and rowing, and the sea was contrary to them. And about 4th and watch of the night, he came upon them walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them. And they saw him walking upon the sea, and they supposed it to be a spirit, and they cried out. For they saw him and were troubled. Immediately he talked with them and said to them, be of good cheer. It is I, be not afraid. And he went up into the ship, and the wind ceased, and they were sore amazed in themselves beyond measure, and wonder. And they considered not the miracle of loaves, where their heart was hardened. When they had passed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret, and drew to the shore. And when they came out of the ship, straightway they knew him. And they ran through that whole region round about, and began to carry about in beds those who were sick, and where they had heard he was. And whatsoever he entered into the villages or cities or country, they laid the sick in the street, and besought him that they might touch it, if it were but the border of his garment. And many as touched him were made whole, so saved and healed. Okay, and that's chapter 6. So we'll begin again in chapter 7 next time, God willing. I do hope that you have a blessed weekend, and be well. I'm praying for you and keeping you in my prayer, Thomas and Pam and Buddy and Nanette and others. Okay? Leave me a comment, thumbs up, like, only if you like it, and subscribe. Okay, bye-bye.